The USA, land of the free and home of the brave, where anyone can be anything they want to be if they're willing to just work hard enough. But after thinking that it would never come to the USA, it's finally arrived and Americans are shocked. Food shortages are a global problem now, and there isn't a single country that hasn't been affected by this over the last year. American shoppers fired up social media, complaining of empty shelves at Walmarts and other stores after being met with empty meat aisles. And some large grocery stores in Florida and California were actually stripped bare earlier this month due to transportation issues. After 2 years of people seeing food shortages on their TVs, it's finally become a reality for some. Recent polls asking people whether they had personally experienced any food scarcity in recent weeks revealed some shocking statistics. In the UK, 56% of respondents said yes, they had experienced food shortages when going to the store. In the US, it was 49%. Germany, 18%. France, 16%. Sweden, 12%. Denmark, 8%. And Italy, 6%. In developing nations, this number was close to 100% of people who were polled. Of course, the governments and the media are blaming COVID for everything. But if you're a loyal subscriber of mine, you know there's more to this than meets the eye. Oh, and also, why not click that like button while you're there? So let's look at the 3 main reasons for the food shortages right now, with unfortunately more issues on the way. So let's start with dairy. Dairy farmers are dumping millions of litres of milk, with one farmer dumping 40,000 litres in just 2 months because they couldn't get anybody to come and pick up the milk. As a result of this, right throughout the nation, schools are actually complaining that it has caused a shortage of milk for the children. Pork and other livestock. Prices are skyrocketing due to the increase in prices of the feed that you need to raise the livestock. This means, of course, that pigs and bacon products are becoming more expensive. And just in the UK last year, it is estimated by the industry body that around 150,000 fully grown pigs had to be slaughtered at the farm because they simply couldn't get them to the abattoirs, and even if they got them there, they didn't have the staff to actually do the butchering. And to add to this huge problem already, in the United States, there is something called porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, PRRS. This virus is devastating US herds, leading to the deaths of up to 35% of female pigs and piglets. Added to this, and this is where other livestock like beef comes into play, they simply do not have the CO2, the butchers or the drivers in order to process the animals. Craft beers is the next one, and again, the CO2 issues is now affecting craft beers. And I know some of you guys love your beers, so I would recommend you get stocked up now because a lot of the smaller breweries have already run out of their CO2 supplies. Of course, packaging also comes into the picture here, with everything from glass and cans to labels, corks and caps, all in short supply. Chicken is the next one, also in short supply, with thousands of restaurants having to close throughout the last 2 years, and industry experts say that this will continue right through 2022 and easily into 2023. So if you like your chicken, again, get some of it in the freezer now. Fish and seafood. Fish are becoming harder to catch, and what fishermen do catch, fisherwomen, are saying these fish are getting even smaller. Of course, they are blaming it on, you know what it is, climate change. Now, I had to think about this one, and I went, is it really climate change, or is it absolutely, as far as the eye can see, amount of fishing vessels with now their huge deep sea nets and all of this that's actually causing it, or is it climate change that's causing the fish to get smaller. Logic and common sense would say to me, there's too much overfishing, and of course they're catching the adults and now you're getting a lot smaller fish. That would just be logical to me, but hey, I'm no fisher, man, woman, whatever. Packaging is the next one because the majority of it comes from, you guessed it,
China. China. China.
China. China. I think I pronounced it right there. The main one here is aluminium that is in short supply, or before the Americans correct me, aluminum as Americans pronounce it. And expect these supplies to not recover until 2023 to 2024. Okay, the next one might trigger the coffee addicts watching because coffee is actually running out in terms of supply. The current forecasted coffee shortage is expected to last at least 3 years, if not longer, because one of the world's biggest coffee growers and exporters, Brazil, was facing what it describes as one of its worst droughts in almost a century. Okay guys, we need to sort this one out. This easily can become a national emergency. We need the coffee, we need the caffeine. I can just imagine everyone 9 a.m. on a Monday morning in the office causing absolute mayhem. Wait. Actually, no, we're not even going to the office anymore. So don't worry, it'll just cause mayhem for the kids. All right, so let's get into the 3 main reasons now then as to why we're having all of these issues. If you're getting value from this video, could you do me a quick favor? Just click the like button. Just takes 2 seconds. Thank you so much. Number 1 is labor shortages. There's an old expression that says, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. Well, if we look at the leadership around the world right now, I think it's fair to say that the weak men are already here. When I think back to when I was a kid, or when many of you were a kid growing up, I was always splitting open my arm or my legs or even my head, falling out of trees or getting into mayhem. I was always getting into scuffles with the other kids, either in the street or on the playground. And one day I even messed around with a wasp nest and got stung 20 times before getting to the doctor real quick, who injected me with whatever those things are called to stop you going into that shock and dying. But 20 minutes later, I got out of the doctor's office, I got on my BMX and joined my friends again. We carried on playing. That's just what we did. But these days, if you see a young man crying, it's probably because he's not just broken his arm falling out of a tree. It's more likely that he's just put a scratch on his new smartphone, or he's just been killed in his online game. Actually, in a recent survey of 18 to 25-year-olds, many of those surveyed said they do not want to go back to a customer-facing role due to health concerns. Just think about that for a second. 18 to 25-year-olds, health concerns. Generation Zs or Generation Zs have been quitting their jobs at an increased rate of over 100% during the last year. Many just don't want to work anymore. Why? New habits. As many of you will know, it takes 30 days to create a new habit. And we've had 600 days of this new type of habit, which is for many being at home and not working. Who wants to go back to a job in the food industry? This is extremely hard work versus sitting at home and working part-time or having a more flexible work from home job where your boss doesn't know what you're up to for part of the day. Of course, unemployment compensation, first at $600 and then $300 in December 2020, created the effect of paying people more through unemployment benefits and stimulus than they could earn at work, thus creating a disincentive for job seeking. In other words, the government paid people not to work. And what are the governments in many countries doing now? They are paying people to self-isolate. So of course, what are people doing? They are doing daily tests. And what's this doing? This is pushing up the number of positives. All of this combined has created a phenomenon called institutionalization, like prisoners who don't ever want to leave prison. Many young people who were surveyed said they don't want to leave their homes and ever go back to a physical workplace. As an example, the consumer packaged goods industry in the USA is missing around 120,000 workers, out of which only 1,500 jobs were added recently, while the National Grocers Association said that many of its grocery store members were operating with less than 50% of their workforce capacity. Many of the unemployed are actively engaged in looking for work opportunities. However, 70% of those polled said they don't want to go back to the same type of job they had before. Often these are minimum wage jobs or very difficult manual labor jobs, and say that they now want something a lot easier. Of course, the other thing that no one seems to be talking about is that during the lockdowns, employers let go of their employees or put them on very long-term furlough. What happened was these employees then said, look, I need to reskill just in case my job doesn't come back. So they went from these unskilled jobs into now they are qualified for skilled jobs. This creates a vacuum in the unskilled labor market. So of course, all of these points lead on to our second thing we're going to discuss here, which is supply chain issues. Yes, we do have huge delays in China, but we also have delays at the ports in the USA adding to the backlog too. That's why you could see container ships off the coast of LA as far as the eye could see. Shipping container costs went from a few $1,000s per container to a whopping $18,000 to $20,000 per shipping container. Of course, the grocery industry have to react to this. So what do they put in their containers? It's more fresh produce instead of the longer life canned stuff, pastas, bagged items that last a lot longer. And instead they are simply waiting for prices to come down on transportation so they can send these items later. This is why when you go to the grocery stores, most of the pasta items are usually out of stock right now. Of course, the other bizarre one is that the USA sends its chickens to China for processing, and then China sends those chickens back after they've been processed. What kind of a weird, crazy world are we now living in where a country can't process its own chickens? Growers of perishable produce across the West Coast are paying nearly triple the usual trucking rates to ship their produce from the West Coast to the East Coast. One farmer said, we used to do it for about $7,000. Now it's $18,000 to $22,000. Another very controversial point that's just come up in the media this week is the vaccine mandates on the USA border. With less than 50% of truckers having been double vaccinated, this is now causing an issue where trucks can simply not cross the border. This is only going to add to these food shortages even further. And it's not just restricted to the USA and Canada border. The United Kingdom and the European Union are having similar problems now. In fact, the new post-Brexit custom rules for goods arriving into the United Kingdom from the European Union have now come into effect. The food industry body has warned that the new border controls could lead to major food shortages in the United Kingdom. What many people don't realise is that the UK imports 5 times more food than it exports to the EU. Point number 3 then is changing weather patterns and major stockpiling. A number of problems faced by farmers in 2020 got even worse in 2021, and many are saying that they are really hoping that it doesn't get even worse this year in 2022. Because farmers have been fighting heavier than normal rains and flooding, or struggling with heat and drought right across the world, this has now become a global issue. So regardless of which side of the fence you sit on regarding climate change, there's absolutely no doubt that the weather patterns around the world are changing. We are seeing more hot weather in certain countries causing droughts, and we are seeing more rainfall and more flooding in other areas, completely destroying the crops. Just last year, China lost millions of hectares of crops in just one harvest. And consumers have continued to stockpile food at home. In fact, the demand right now is even higher than it was in March 2020 when the lockdowns began and we saw empty shelves in grocery stores nationwide. In fact, the UK was one of the worst hit, and if you remember my video going around the largest grocery store in Europe, and all the shelves were empty. Overall, people are preparing for the worst right now. So in conclusion then, we have a huge and much higher demand on groceries, combined with soaring freight costs, labor shortages, supply chain issues, weather ruining crops, stockpiling, health fears in young people, and the government creating institutionalization. It's an absolute disaster. And I know the government is saying to everyone, under no circumstances should you stockpile. But they're doing it themselves. They are stockpiling on a level that we've never seen since World War II. So as the old saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. Get some food stocked up today, ladies and gentlemen, because we could see a bumpy ride ahead. Building a stockpile of, say, 90 days worth of food and other consumables and supplies that you use on a daily basis probably wouldn't be a bad idea right now, regardless of where you live. So thank you so much for watching my video today. Please click the like button if you haven't already. Why not subscribe to the channel? I bring you videos like this on a regular basis. Take care, God bless, and I will see you all next time.